Dear all, greetings of the day. So hope you watched Feminism with a small f part 1. And here we go with the second part of it. So I continue with it. We know that in the previous part, Buchi Emecheta was talking about polygamy and its merits. And she was talking about how the women were actively involved in taking care of raising up their children and involving in activities that could help them be economically independent and so on. And so she continues saying, see, for her Western sisters, she tells that sex is not part of life. It's not the life. So Western feminists say that women should enjoy sex, but they might even laugh. But African feminism is totally free from all such shackles of Western romantic illusions. And therefore, Buchi Emecheta tends to be more pragmatic. And she believes that for many, many reasons, they are not there just to cultivate themselves for the sake of men and to make them pretty for the sake of men. So for them, beauty is not to appease a man. For them, beauty is found in their sisterhood. So when a woman reaches the age of 40, she starts to make conscious efforts to cultivate sisterhood, either through marriage, through the people that she has gained through marriage, or through the village age groups. As I told you earlier, if she needs help, she will find people in the family. If she needs advice, she will go to elderly people in the village, maybe her mother or mother-in-law, that way. And all of these will help them reap their rewards. Okay, and so all of these have rich dividends. And in England, she says that she was called, or she belonged to a group of people called the war babies. In fact, they all started calling them the saltless babies too, because when they were born in Nigeria, they didn't have salt at that time. So in village, they were called the saltless women. But 16 of her age mates were there in London, so they also came together. And as I told you earlier, they were called the saltless babies, and they were all together, and they formed a group of their own. Now she goes on to talk about how this communal living, or living as a community, is not restricted to their native land alone, but it is found or it is practiced in the land that they have settled into. So she recollects how one of the members of their groups was in a hospital, and that other patients would call her that she was a princess of Africa. You know why? Because on all visiting days, the nurses and doctors had to shoo them away or to chase them away because they were there for hours together. And she recollects how the member of that group that they had formed, the saltless babies groups that they had formed, was there in the hospital for almost 3 weeks. And 2 days, Emecheta took her turn to visit her. And she had to wait for almost 15 minutes for her turn to come back. And she says she lived in North London, very, very far away from her house. Okay, but still the members made it a point to make sure that she had visitors every night. Not just her, even so some of them visited the patient in the hospital, while some others took care of her 7 children at home. In fact, all of these began after her husband, whose husband, the patient's husband, left her over 3 years ago. He said initially he just told her that he's going on a business to Nigeria, but then later on they got to know that he lived with another woman there, but then she was in no way bothered about her. In fact, she didn't even care for him because she was too busy to care about his desertion. And so as of now, she feels that if he returns, it's good. If not, also it's still better, she feels. And thereafter, she didn't lose courage. She mustered all courage, and she trained herself to be a hairdresser. And now that her children are all at in the school, going to different schools, her house is really very free. So her large house, she's converting it into flats, and she and her older daughter, who's the patient's older daughter, are thinking of starting a bed and breakfast business, the B&B business. And so whenever she is ready, she's going to come to their group and take an interest free loan from their funds. So even now in London, they've all contributed some amount and kept there for people in need to collect some money or loan without any interest. So she says if her husband was around, he would have hardly been of any help to her. But then now that he has no job, it's better that he even comes there, be in their way of their members' self-realization and so on. So they think that when a man is there around, it's just for looking after him for sexual rewards, and even that they don't mind. They just do it. But then when he deserts them and goes away, they hardly have any feelings associated with it. But then soon after a divorce or the death of the husband, Western women hurry to get married again. It might be a divorce or after a bereavement. But African women think, and they're slower to do that. Especially women with children would never do that. They don't even bother. They start again a life anew and afresh, and because they have other women to help them and they have their own friends to support them. And she talks about her women. She says women in her books are normally quarrelsome and jealous. But then when they come together, they are all done with it. They make it up over few brandies or chicken legs. And they know that forgiving is one value or one quality that has to be done. And they start gaining that. They know that by being alone, they cannot do that, and so they avoid jealousy also. So in her book Joys of Motherhood, she talks about a family where a woman went on a strike and she refused to get housekeeping money. And because why? The husband who was giving the housekeeping money was drinking all the time, and the greater part of his income was spent on drinks. And so she's so very proud, she's so very determined that she says she can manage on her own, and she doesn't get any money from him. And in her book, she also describes another woman's life who's busy being a good mother, being a wife. And so eventually she didn't have women friends. And you know what? She was left deserted by her husband, probably, we do not know. But somehow she died by the wayside, hungry and alone. Emecheta wants to emphasize on the support rendered by the African women to another women of their community, and how they come together to live their life in a happy way and in a fruitful way. And she also talks about a jealous woman in her book whose husband, when he brought a new wife, she couldn't tolerate it at all. So she was awake all the time, listening to what was happening. And at one point of time, there seems to have been an enlightenment in her, and she decides not to quarrel with the new bride or with the new woman who's come into the family. In fact, she capitalizes on it, and they become friends. And that way they become mutually beneficial. And in fact, at one point of time, they become so busy that sexuality is pushed into the background. So she comes to the point of polygamy, saying that polygamy can be liberating. It's not something that inhibits a woman. So she says, if there is polygamy, now she starts talking about the merits of polygamy. If there is polygamy, the husband has no reason or no grounds on which he can stop his wife from attending international conferences as she does, or going back to the university, or updating her career, or even getting another degree. So it's polygamy, she says, that helps them value herself as a woman, and it helps her just recognize herself, realize herself, her self-worth, and then go beyond that, reach out to her friends in the community, befriend them, be with them, empower herself economically, which will certainly give her freedom, she says. And that way they have no worry about her husband having more wives. Most of the time, whenever he comes to her, they make it a point that he's very well, like he's in good mood, and that he's washed, clean and ready, because they don't want to have a dirty husband, and a husband who's all the time moody and so on. So in that way, because now they are educated, they're working, they see people around, they have so much of awareness, and so they know about everything, and so they too have a dignity of their own. So they want themselves to be treated in the best possible way, and she says that's the best way in which they can enjoy each other. Then she recollects how, and she says, when a career woman has a child, she need not leave the child elsewhere. There'll be another person in the family who will be taking care of the child. So she recollects how one day a small boy of a group member, or small son of a group member in London, told his teacher that they have two mummies, that he has two mummies. So mummy number 1, mummy number 2, and so on. So the teacher barely had any idea about it. Probably she informed herself, and she told herself that the solicitor father must be having two wives, and the children are being loved and looked after by two women, his mother and the senior wife. But that's the best way to start life. And then so this is what she talks about polygamy in the African society, and how it affects the African women in the positive way, how it has a positive influence in their lives. So she's saying, what is the best way to start one's life is in Ibuza? It's just the same. So once a woman starts making money, okay, once she becomes economically independent, she stops having children regularly. And she even goes further to say, if women are lucky to find the work that they love, they give importance to their career rather than being with their husband. Okay, and many female writers and English female writers, they say that it is their work that's really, really sad, gratifying sexually. And even they don't even want men, they can be on their own. So for her, she says, as an author, she finds her fullest satisfaction in her work. She again reiterates this fact that sex is part of our life, but it shouldn't be the life, she says. Okay, so she now starts talking about the issues that engulf the black women. So in many parts of Africa, it'll be only one's own enemy will be praying that an African woman or a pregnant woman should have a girl child. But most of the people want pregnant women to have a man child, and whenever they bless a pregnant woman, the blessing goes this way, saying you'll be safely delivered of a bouncing baby boy, and never do they pray for a girl child. So the pregnant woman also doesn't say, hey, why did you say that I should have only a boy and not a girl? Because in hearts of hearts, she would also like to have a man child who will not be married away and will be gone from the family. So she wants somebody who will stay at home, like a boy, stay at home, take care of his mother when she becomes weak and old. So most of the African societies, they ensure that a boy is born. They pray continuously for that, because when a boy is born, a woman has more authority in the family. So a male child is very, very important for a woman to gain authority in the family. But then yes, sometimes God has his own will to perform, and then if there is a girl child who has not been desired for, but then she will come into her own when she's of her own matured age, when she attains puberty and all that, or rather even from childhood, she is conditioned into thinking that all the household work must be done by her. She must help her mother to cook, clean, take care of the little brothers and sisters, and fetch water, and so on. So if, at moments when she says, oh, I can't do this is so painful, and if she shows signs of disinterest, she'll be sharply reminded by her big mothers or her mother, say, hey, you're a girl and you're going to be a woman. So now these women, they work hard to bring the next generation into the world. They nurture into them and they make them grow up strong enough to leave their nest and start their own life. Yeah, it's sometimes quite painful to see the children leaving. It's a thankless job, but is it a mean job? No. And so it's not a thankless job, I say. It's my personal opinion. It's a job. It's not even a job. It's a vocation. It's God's call. That's how I look at it. Okay. So from there, I move on to the point that Emecheta discusses. She says that she once, when a photojournalist came to her place, she wanted to take her photograph in her office. But then the photojournalist, who was a staunch feminist, she became so angry that the writer's office was not in a separate place, as so she didn't have a room of her own. It was in the kitchen, where at the background they could see the packages of cereals and everything there. And so she did not want the photographs to be taken there. But then the author said that that's her place, because she feels warm there, more convenient. And she says, as I'm typing out my story, I can also have an eye on my family. I can take care of my family. So in the kitchen, Emecheta felt that she had the peace of the world that even the nuclear scientists could not provide her with. And she says it's in the kitchens, being in the kitchen, taking care of our household chores, that we rear up Regans, Nikrumas, and all Jesuses here. And she says that we cook for them, and we send them away from home when they are grown up, into men and women, and we teach them how to love and how to hate. And so isn't that a greater job that we do? So a mother with a family, in a family or with a family, is an economist, a nurse, a painter, a diplomat, and more than all of that, and not just a housewife. So we are told, over half of the population, Emecheta says. So though we do such kind of a work, yet where are we? We are in the lowest rung of the society. Men do that. and they put us there. Do you think men do that? No, men don't do that. We put ourselves there. Women put ourselves there. And she says, how often do your colleagues say, oh, I don't know anything, I am not a career woman, or I'm not, your friends say, what are you doing? No, I'm just a housewife, I'm only a housewife. Okay, so housewives are not just a housewife. So she says women should have more choices, and there should be more great leaders like Geraldine Ferraro, who was the member of the parliament earlier, and we need more people like Golda Meirs, Indira Gandhi, Margaret Thatcher's, and so on. So she says, but then those who want to control and influence the future by giving birth and nurturing the young. So she says, not just that you have to be creators, you have to be painters, you have to be sculptors, you have to be writers to be great successful women, but then there might be some women who want to just give birth and nurture the young and take care of them. Here, do not look down upon them. Do not have a condescending look towards them. It's not a degrading job. So, if I had my way, she says, it would be the highest paid job in the world. Yes, agreed. So, both men and women should be trained to do the household chores. And she says, few of the women, African women, have now this privilege of breaking the bonds, and they live at home and they also take up career. And she says that we are lucky enough to come out of families. And she also recollects how certain girls are really lucky to be allowed to go to school, stay there long enough, and to acquire knowledge, and to equip them to live away from their families, and to be on par with men, take up their career, follow it. And at this point of time, I'm reminded of Malala, who didn't have the opportunity of going to school because of certain reasons. And so imagine those children who don't get the opportunity of going to school, especially the girls, and all those who have the opportunity of being educated. Be thankful of it. Okay, so because you are more fortunate than those who don't get to go to even school compounds. Okay, so she says we are really very grateful that we get to rub shoulders with men, walk along with them. So she also proceeds further to talk about how African women succeed in various fields along these lines. So this is not something new to African women. They've been doing that in the market day. Haven't we seen that earlier? So that has been her kind of work so far. And women have been involved, African women, in the rural areas or in the agrarian settings, in the really town, smaller hamlets. They've been involved in petty trading, and when they are going for such jobs, they have their small children also with them. So they do all kinds of trading, starting from selling loaves of bread to a few packages of matches or whatever that may be. They even have small stalls or sheds and so on, and others might have these stalls in front of their houses even. So many Nigerian women who live in the cities also, they collect their Esusu profits and they save it for themselves. That itself is a big amount or a huge amount for any kind of major investment. So authors who have great number of friends who have families that way, they are very fortunate. But then that doesn't mean that there are kind of lower middle class jobs also, like teaching and all that. Certain people have even given up the job for trading because they want to be with their community. But wherever the women are, they are successful in whatever they do and wherever they do, and that's not something new to African women. And that's when she talks about the Aba riot, and she says that this is a riot that spread from Owerri in eastern Nigeria to Calabar. And what's so special about it? This riot was solely started by the African women, and we should understand that they don't even speak the same language, but somehow they all came together and they were spread across the river to include women from Asaba area also. And a white male, when they talk about it, they don't talk this riot. They say that it was a kind of a real war, and they start wondering at how the African women had the ability to organize themselves at a time when there were no telephones or no letters, and they had only bush tracks and dangerous rivers, not even wonderful roadways or pathways. So it was so she compares the distance between London and Edinburgh to talk about how people from such a vast area could be, how their support could be garnered, and how they could come together to create a riot which the white male call as real war. So women from different groups started wearing various headgears, and they started even using household utensils. And this war took place in the year 1929, and they started answering the British demands and the British demands that women should pay taxes. So that was a great thing. Okay, so the black women of that war in fact started praising their men folk, but then the Britishers did not rebuke them. They rather admired them, and so in desperation the Britishers could not have the women in jail, so they had all the men whose wives took part in the riot in the jail. They were imprisoned. So because they could not acknowledge women, especially barbaric women, they could not even understand how could these women who were not so educated organize themselves to achieve such a great feat. So working and achieving together was not something new to them. They could reach anything when they worked, and they could achieve anything greater. So it was not new to the African women, but still they had many obstacles in their way. Especially her family did not want girls to be educated. They wanted the boys to be educated, and she had to be at home taking care of all the women's duties. And the boy, however clever he was, who won't be there with would not be where he is today. We know that it was because of the sacrifices made by his mother, by his sweetheart, or by his wife or sister that he holds a position in the society. Otherwise he wouldn't. So even behind every successful man there is a dedicated woman. African man, there is a dedicated African woman. Okay, so African women always have been great achievers, and so when we say great achievers, it does not mean that they were successful lawyers or writers or doctors. Whatever profession they took up, they did that very well. They did it from their heart. They did it very passionately, and never did they sideline it. So for the majority of the women of Africa, real achievement was just making their immediate environment happy, whatever their circumstances were, by tending crops or by giving comfort and so on. So Emecheta says she will still have greater aspirations if she can cross over all the structured and artificial barriers, if they are removed, when her education, so that's the first point. Second point, when her education is free and available, she'll be able to achieve her aspiration. And the education should be free and available not to every child, to every male or female child. And third point, she can achieve her aspiration when the male dominated media does not expose black women as a beautiful entertainer, undermining her brain power. Okay, and the fourth one is she can achieve her aspirations when the African women have the confidence that that their contribution is a valuable contribution to the world. So saying all of these things, Emcheta says it's time that we start singing about our own heroic deeds. So let's sing about our own heroic deeds, about our own power, about how well empowered we are. So that's it. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you for your patient watching.